Yeah, that's one of the big nail we got in the coffin about PR, especially for the press.
Mm,
You can, for example, if you go to events, you can have some kind of KPI, like you're just collecting emails from players that went to your stand and try your games. If you're doing some influencer marketing, you can ask for the influencers to put the link, at, um, track links in the description of the video and also in the chat if it's on Twitch, for example. You can ask for that, and because the link is tracked, you can, well, have some KPI to know if it's working or not. For the press, it's a bit different. So you can only have some kind of estimation because uh, you're rarely gonna have the data from the websites. They will not tell you, okay, from this page, 1 month ago, we got that number of clicks on the link, for example.
right.
But there's some kind of tools you can use to get an estimation like Alexa. I don't know if you
Yep.
know this site. It just gives you the ranking, some kind of ranking about the websites, all websites actually. So, you can find if the review in this media is for a large audience or a smaller audience. But once again, a smaller audience sometimes can be really great. If you have an indie game and you're going in an article in Indie Game Plus, that's great. So you don't have really good KPI to give about press, but you can give the Alexa ranking and the estimation of people that went
Mm,
to the article. And the other thing is that Steam also is not really helping about tracking the source going to your page. So
yeah.
it's bit, but usually PR is more about visibility, notoriety than really having specific KPI. So
Yep.
doesn't really matter. You know that if you get an article on PC Gamer or Kotaku, it's going to be huge most of the time. So you just have to know the top tier and the others, if they are from your niche game or not, and just having a good idea of what is going on. The other thing is that you can have a bit of data. That's again an extrapolation, but if you have your Steam page live, for example, and you're doing some kind of peer stunt and you get coverage in some medias, then you can check on your Steam page to see if there's some kind of peak because of that. So
Yeah. So,
figure out a few data.
so what you're saying too, because I was thinking of that same exact thing too, is like the example you provided was like with your Steam page, and like this could also potentially apply if you have a website where
Yeah,
after your PR efforts, like get a baseline of that activity on your Steam page or on your website in terms of traffic, who's been going, because for the most part that's going to be really consistent, unless like something else happens or whatever. But generally, probably 9 times out of 10, you got consistent traffic going there. And then,
if you get a website, then it's cool because you can use Google Analytics
yep,
to have cool data, which is not really possible with Steam. But if you got your own website, then you can find some good data to explore
yeah, you'll probably see one if people are going directly from there, from that the article that
from
the
this
press,
site. Yep. Yeah.
from. Or sometimes what you'll see is might be like just organic traffic that you'll see an increase in because, and if you have other things hooked up too, you might even be able to see that people are actually typing in your game name and looking for it. That's always a cool thing when
Yeah,
that starts happening.
yeah, and because, for example, if you get an article in PC Gamer, of course, it will upgrade your own SEO because the
Yep.
PC Gamer is a well-known site for Google, for example, so it will increase the value of your site because of that and stuff like that. So you got many advantage, of course.
Cool. All right. So if you're looking to track efforts, it's not an exact science, but there's definitely, as Jan shared, there's some really good things that you can attribute from those efforts and how to kind of like break them down a little bit, so get a better understanding of those things. All right. Well, we're coming close to time here, but before we do, I mean,
Another just
yeah,
simple, just excuse me, another just simple thing that do the test. You don't do, most of them will not do, but don't do any press reach for 2 weeks. Okay, nothing happened. Then do a press campaign with asking for reviews, and then you will have a lot of guys asking you for a code. So now you get the results
Oh yeah, so you
of
just
your campaign.
so having that like just establishing that good baseline first, and then kind of measuring what happens after the launch of the PR campaign, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. All right, so we covered a lot today, but before we close, is it possible that you could give us like 3 or 5 suggestions or tips that you would recommend indie devs to consider when they're thinking about PR for their game?
First, as we said at the beginning, is time. You need time. You need to be consistent all along the way to do a bit of PR and to strategize it.
Yep. So make sure you have enough time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say if you consider your game is going to be ready in a year, just consider 3 months more to do all, which is about communication and PR, just all along the way, not on the last 3 months, but all along the way.
Okay.
Um, just do a real neat press kit on your website. Have a website and have a press kit included.
Okay.
This helps journalists' job really. So there's do press kit, which is really useful, and you can obviously use it for free. So that's a really great tool. Um, and because you're having time, just genuinely and openly go to the journalists that cover your kind of games. Most of them you can read them on Twitter, for example. Some of them you can read them on LinkedIn, and just go in private conversation. Just try it. Most of them are really nice, and they will answer you. And you can don't go. I would say not spamming them or not bullying them. Just not going there like, oh, I got a new game. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. No, you have to be more smart than that, and you know article they wrote, and that's why you're contacting them. So just go inside in a private message and say, hey, how you doing? I hope you're all right. Just be polite, and then just say, well, I wrote some of your articles like about this game, which are similar to mine. I would like to know if you can have an eye on it and just have like a genuine recommendation about my game. If you do that like 6 months before you launch, already people will notice your game, and they probably tend to have a look for later purpose. And 6 months after, when you release it, of course, then people will know about your game because they chat with you, and you get more chance to get an article or a review. And the last thing I would say is most of devs don't know about Games Press, and they should use it. Do you know Games Press?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I'm trying to. It's basically like press releases specifically for games, correct?
Exactly. So even if you didn't took time to really establish communication with some journalist, well, make sure at least that you're sending your press release via Games Press because it reaches a lot of media and can always be helpful.
All right, cool. Well, really appreciate those tips and suggestions. I mean, really good. I especially like the like reaching out to journalists. I know sometimes it can be people can get a little apprehensive about actually reaching out and contacting them, but I think basically what you said is just treat them like a person and even offer and tell them what you thought about what they covered, especially if it's relating to your game, and you're going to develop more of a better rapport or at least relationship with them that way, and then that's how you can kind of like move forward with getting your game covered. And I like that one a lot, and I think a lot of people don't do that because of a variety of reasons. But if you're that one person doing something differently, then it's more likely to work, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I like, for example, in PR is that I'm less shy, I would say, that most of people. So I don't mind going out there and asking, well, just meeting people and just talk to them and learn from them and ask also things. It's just natural behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Well, before we go, I would love for you to share what is a great way for people to reach out to you, get more information. I know on your website you have a great blog with lots of content there and everything, but what are the best channels where people can find out more information about you, what you do, and how to contact you?
So obviously they can reach me out on my website, which is indiegamesmarketer.com. As you say, there's some client testimonials, case studies, and blog with full of article tips and great stuff. You can reach me most of the time. I'm really connected to Twitter, longshot_indie, and you can reach me by mail at Yohann, YOHANN @indiegamesmarketer.com.
All right, awesome. Well, Yohann, I really appreciate the time that you took to kind of go in depth with about, what to do with PR, how to take those approaches, everything else that you shared with us. So again, thank you so much for being on the show. I think this is really helpful content that a lot of our listeners are going to be able to learn from and take action with. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for the invitation.
Of course. Hey, everybody, and thanks again for listening to Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. Hey, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, feel free to do so by going to indiegamemovement.com. And I just want to thank our podcast producer, Mustafa Price, and give a special thanks to Taisuke Kimura, who composed the theme, and Donnie Wilson for the logo design. Just really appreciate your help and hard work, guys. If you have any questions or suggestions for the podcast, feel free to email us at igm@rengenmarketing.com. Rengen Marketing is a company that I co-founded that provides consulting services to indie devs. And on our website, we also provide really helpful, in-depth content on our blog. And we also have a free marketing plan template that you guys can use for your next game. So thanks again for listening right here on Indie Game Movement.